Hi, it's Jarrod from Strongroots Farm. Welcome back to the channel. If you've been following along, we recently got back from vacation and it's been quite a while since I made a video. So today I'm gonna do a farm tour and go around and show you some of the projects we've been working on. And so I'll catch you kind of up to speed of what's actually going on here. And I have a lot of little helpful hints. It's a kind of a mishmash video where I'm gonna show you a lot of little things that I learned about leaving and a lot of little projects that I think will help you. I'm also going to answer some questions. So I've had some comments and questions from time to time. I've got these written down and I want to answer some of these questions that people have asked in the last month. We'll go over all that today. Stick around. Welcome back. If you did not see our prepping for vacation video, I'll put that down in the description down there, kind of show you everything we did to help the guy who was taking care of our farm before we went on vacation, how we're able to leave our farm. There's so much to take care of here. How do you leave? So I'll put that, that'll be the very first video down there. He did everything fine. Everything went great except for one water mishap. And I have a great solution. So this is common. You leave the water hydrant like this on and your water runs over. He left it on one night. He was doing too many things. He thought he would turn it on, fill them up, go out and do chickens and pigs all at the same time. Then he could just shut it off and leave. He got busy, decided to get the mail as well, and then left. And it ran all night long. We're on city water here, so luckily all it did was cost us money. It did run over with these rocks. It comes this way and kind of goes down into a drain. Not a huge deal, but it's gonna cost us 30, 40, 50 bucks maybe for that water hose running all night long. That's the problem we have, but I have a good solution. So of course, there are a lot of expensive automatic things that you can buy. The Jobe water flow, MagnaFlow valve that we use on all of our tanks. That's my favorite, and it's 50 bucks. It's down, there's a affiliate link down there in the description, and that is my favorite way to build a water. And we have a best water video where we showed you how to make those tanks, but a lot of my tanks, or some of my tanks, I guess, don't have those in it. I only have about 4 of those set up with those automatic flows. So we have some stationary tanks like everybody has. You know, you fill them with water, fill them every 3rd or 4th day for a small head. We only have 2 head in here right now. And what do? You leave the water on. So there's also these things where it'll shut off when it gets to the top. What I have found with those cheaper plastic units like that is once a cow busts their nose against it or a goat chews on it, they bust and the water runs all day long, and you use that as a confidence that it's not going to run over and it fails you. But I have found, or I saw on Facebook, I'm stealing this idea, the cheapest, easiest reminder fix to not leave this. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna buy a spring wrist bracelet is what I'm gonna call it. It's gonna look something like this. I'll put a little Amazon picture up here and the affiliate link for this. You can find these anywhere. What you're gonna do is take one of these bracelets, put a tag on it that says water, and you're gonna hook it underneath here. So you'll open this water hydrant up, you'll hook this bracelet in here, you'll shut it back down, and that bracelet will just hang here. Then when you turn on the water, or the person that you're helping, that's helping you, you tell them, they turn the water on, they put the bracelet on their wrist. It's annoying enough or different enough that it reminds them to shut the water off, but it's not in your way enough that you can't do other chores. You could go and feed. It costs a few bucks, and then it tells you, oh, I've got this dumb bracelet on when I get back in my car, I walk to the house, I forgot to shut the water off. You go back out, you put the bracelet back in the hook, you shut it down, and it turns the water off. Great solution. There's also another thing that if you're not experienced with how these work, that we've learned that is also a mishap. So these are what they call frost-free water hydrants. And why they call them this is when you shut this handle off up here, the blue handle that we were touching, way down in this tube below the ground is a plunger. When you shut that down, it opens up a valve at the bottom of this tube, allowing the water to drain out of this down into the ground. That way it doesn't freeze in the winter. That's why they're frost free. They don't take any electricity to heat that tube, and that water line will not bust. Well, summer or winter, it doesn't really matter. If that water hose remains hooked up like it's in the summer, it's just staying hooked up right now, you shut that off and the water hose is in that tank like that. Because it cannot suck oxygen, When it opens that valve up below the ground, water starts coming out into the ground. We put a bunch of rock around the bottom of that when we installed it, and it will literally suck the entire water hose and that entire tank drained down into the ground, because the ground is lower than this water point. It will siphon itself backwards until it sucks oxygen, until air gets in that line and it stops that valve and allows that valve to shut off or empty out essentially. So all that water you just put in that tank, if you leave the hose hang inside the tank, it's going to empty it out and your animals won't have water. Now, if you say, duh, Jarrod, doesn't everybody know that? That's just common sense. Well, you had to learn it sometime, and my 9-year-old learned it this week the wrong way. He shut it off, ran off to play with his friends who were here, and I come back out and I said, I thought I told you to fill that water. It's completely empty. He left that hose in it and shut it off. It completely back drained. So just point there, if you didn't know that, that's a mistake that can be made, and it's something you're going to want to teach that guy who's sticking around your farm to help you out. The next thing we had to deal with when we got back was our wood chip haven, right? And so we have the tree companies dumping here. They dump out in this area. We take the tractor, pile it up as high as we can. This pile is much more massive, I promise you, than the camera lets on. But because we weren't here, they deliver every day. I get at least a truckload a day, sometimes 2 a day. And we take that tractor, push them up. But while we were gone a week, they continued. They were all the way out to this gravel, and we had to take and pile all that up. So when we got back, we cleaned that up, and we've also been getting rid of a lot of these wood chips. Let's check out some of the places I'm using them. We have this feed lot here. We're not feeding out any animals like a traditional grain-fed operation, but we use a corral. I do have 2 in here that are having issues that we're keeping that can go out, but this is a nice little area. It has tons of gravel underneath of it, and we put about 6 inches out. Looks nice and spread out. What I have found is the best way to do this is our manure spreader. So we load the manure spreader up. It's a 3-ton manure spreader. It takes about 7 or 8 bucket loads of those wood chips. We pile it up as high as we can get it. We put the speed of the manure spreader on a faster speed so that the belt moves faster. And then I simply just back in here in my slowest gear with my tractor and let it run on a really low RPM, like 1,000 RPMs, so that it doesn't fling them everywhere. It just kind of leaves a path. And you can see it leaves a nice layer there. So we got them in here. We've got them here in our main, what we call our feed lot for the winter. This is where our cattle will be during the winter, automatic water there. Need to make an upcoming video on that. I had some questions about that. Take care of that. And then we also have our barn completely ready. It's got 6 inches of wood chips all in it for the winter. Obviously no cows up here right now, but as winter comes, we are ready. Since we've been home, you'll see in a minute, but we have emptied all of our manure out. So that is our manure backer. We kind of pile it up there and compost it. It's all gone and been spread, and all this is ready. Now what I have noticed is it's out here on bare ground. It's obviously going to rain on top of it. These will start to break down before the cattle get here, and that is fine. If they completely break down to black gold before any cattle come because of moisture and just time, I'll simply pile them up and add them to my compost pile as a base and put more wood chips down. I'm definitely not lacking any. We also took our gator here and made loads with the wood chips, and we put it around all of our orchard trees on the hills, around the poles on the gun range, and then took the manure spreader and this little piney tree grove that we have here. We trimmed all these up since we've been home, and we put a bunch of wood chips underneath of it. My wife will hang her hammock in there. Makes a really nice, cool area to hang out. Kids can climb and play in there. And the wood chips hopefully will help keep the weeds from growing up as much. We also went ahead and did our flower beds. We have not done the landscaping here. Whatever was here, we're leaving because we're planning on completely redoing all of our siding and all the windows, painting the brick on the house. So I'm not gonna spend money on landscaping until I tear it all up while I do that siding. And then we have this pine tree over here that we did it around, and we installed a tire swing. Every farm needs a tire swing. Hashtag farm life. As we mow our own yard, of course, we came back to a jungle, got that all cleaned up, mowed about 3 times in the week that we've been home, week and a half we've been home because the grass was so high. The other thing we did as soon as I got back was went ahead and cut second cutting hay. It was really a magnificent cut. I was really, really surprised. I did an entire video series on how we cut hay next to cranky loud chickens. That icon looks something like this right here, and I'll have that down in the video description. So if you're looking about how to do hay, check that video series out. But I want to talk to you a little bit about numbers as my rooster is deciding to be loud. This is just almost 13 acres, right at 13 acres, this field and a little patch over there. On first cutting, we got 49 round bales. So it's like 3.8 round bales per acre. Pretty good ratio. That's pretty average, maybe even a little higher for us. Had a good year this year. Then second cutting, traditionally, we're used to getting about 50% of that. But I got 42 round bales off of my second cutting off of this patch. So why is it different this year? Well, first off, one, it's been a very good year and we had not baled this field in the past, okay? So we've been rotationally grazing, a lot of good nutrients going down, zero fertilizer, right? No synthetic fertilizers here. This has been in pasture for 20 years and we put a lot of manure down on it. We also got one grazing on top of all these round bales that we got off this. We grazed this the beginning of the year, so it did have good nutrients. It is good soil, years of building through rotational grazing, and we had manure the very first cutting, right before the first cutting of the year. Second thing we did, which you'll see if you watch that video, is we do not scalp the ground when we cut with our cutter for baling hay. I like to leave it up 3 to 4 inches to give the ground, to give the grass enough energy there to boost back up. So we're not just killing it and taking it all the way down and forcing it to pull energy from the ground. It has a decent start. I also believe that helps us as it grows back for our second cutting, or if we would decide to graze this after our first cutting. But that doesn't necessarily explain why we got so much on our second cutting, right? So second cutting, one, it had a better start, like we talked about. That could play a role in it, but we've had a lot of rain. Okay, so we've had a lot of rain here, consistent rains, nothing, flooding or pounding rains. It's just rained a lot consistently. So slow, nice, even rains, but every third day it's rained. So we got a lot of regrowth back quickly, which put us in for our good second cutting. And then the heat came. While we were gone, it really got over 90 quite a bit. And when that heat came, the grass jumped up even more. But the weeds came with that. So we did start to see some ragweed come in, which we do have a little bit here in our fields. Every year it gets better and better, but the heat really brought out that ragweed. Luckily, when we got back, the ragweed had not surpassed, big height compared to our clovers and our other orchard grass and things that are in our pastures. So the ragweed did not take it over. We had a good quality hay in our second cutting, but that's what we did. We cut this ground and had it all baled, which I'll take you up. We decided to do this dry bale where we've been wrapping everything else. That way we can get a good test on the quality of our silage bales compared to dry, high quality hay. I'm not sure how well it shows here on film, but about a week after we got all this hay off. Now, because we dry baled this, it sat for a lot longer, about 4 days out here. We raked it and then flipped it, dry baled it, got down below 20% moisture, and then I let the bales stay in the field for 2 days just to make sure they weren't going to heat up, tested the temperature on them, and then put them away in the barn. A few days after that, 3-4 days after that, after we got everything cleared off, we went around, we bush hogged our edges to try to clean our fields up a little bit, bush hogged around our automatic waters over here where I didn't want to get close with the mower, and we spread this manure back out. So all of the areas that we noticed, I took kind of a mental note while I was baling of where was thick and where was thinner. All of those thinner areas, which is the higher ground, surprisingly, and that's kind of how it goes. The wetter ground held more moisture and grew thicker. The higher ground, we spread all our manure out here because we stole nutrients from it with our hay. So we put nutrients back by spreading our composted manure back here. Once again, as I've said before, this is a benefit of not year-round grazing, of having composted manure when the ground can take it in. When the micronutrients and the organisms in the ground are prepared to pull in nutrients, prepared to build soil, versus the winter time when they're dormant, we can put the nutrients back out here. So we store them from our winter and then we put them back out where we need them. That's one key point. And when we need them. Which leads us to two major questions that I've had several times on my channel. One is we talk about we're grazing and baling off of the same farm. So we graze in certain sections, we bale another section because we can't keep up with it. Then we move cattle back through. How do we do that? Do we graze and bale the same fields at the same time? Do we bale after we graze? How does that work? So I want to talk a little bit about that. Short answer is, I don't really know. It's just kind of hit or miss on how the year goes for us. What we would like to do, so in a perfect scenario, we would graze the entire farm in 45 days at the beginning of our season, April 15th or March 15th to April 1st. Somewhere in there is where we tend to come back out to start grazing. Then we graze the entire farm. Then we decide where do we want to bale based off of last year or the quality of the grass. And we start our grazing section and leaving a section of our farm for baling. This year, it was what was back up closest to the barn. We decided that's what we were going to bale because it had the most impact the previous winter. We had a light winter at the beginning of winter, so we stayed out a little longer out here and unrolled hay a little longer out here. So there was just so much more impact. We decided this is what we're going to let grow taller, put more energy back to the soil, and this is what we kept separate. Now, typically, we would like to bale this while we're grazing the back and then work our way back up around our farm, graze this and let the back grow up so that everything on our farm gets one cutting at least, but it's grazed multiple times throughout the year. That did not work out for us this year. What ended up happening this year was because we were grazing at such a lower density, we had more hay ground than we've ever had because I sold a bunch of animals due to the price in the spring, which we will build back and buy more in the late fall when animals are cheaper. We kept what we needed for our butchering customers, but we sold some cows that we wanted to call. We also sold some of our calves that we didn't think we needed, just simply because I was making more profit on live animals than meat. So we're really at the lowest head count that I've been at in 15 years, which allowed us to bale more, which was great. The problem happened is, as I thought I would make it back here in time to graze this, I couldn't graze fast enough to get back. And then when we had the decision, do we bale this or graze it and bale on the back, we decided to bale this again because what is in the back of our farm has better access to the woods. And we ended up baling this, this first or second week here in August when it's super hot. So we decided, let's go ahead and graze again the back of the farm. That way we can back graze into our wooded areas, giving better shade quality for our cattle, allowing them to continue their growth, getting over 3 pounds a day on grass. That was the whole goal. The grass was about the same everywhere. Only about a quarter of our farm had lower grass because of later grazings. And so we made that decision. We actually baled twice this field, this 13 something acres here. We baled the same thing twice and continued to graze everything else the entire year. So maybe next year we'll flip it up. We'll definitely start by baling the back of the farm next year and graze this front farm, giving this a little bit more of a break, a little bit more manure input, but we will finish up the winter here. So we're not gonna bale a late fall baling. We will let this grow up. Our fall flush will come in and we'll store all of this grass for the winter, trying to take it in, not unrolling hay or only unrolling hay if we need it based on the nutrients. And then we will see kind of what our inputs are, what we need to have left remaining as we decide to go back to the barn when we can't keep water from freezing. So it's just a different situation. You kind of give and take and play. How much do you bale? And that's really the risk you take. I would say start conservatively. Don't take too much, because if you take it and bale it and you get it down short, it's gonna take a good 60 days to recover. If you're gonna need to graze it before 60 days, you might put yourself in a slump. And it's kind of just learning through time. And it's not a perfect cookie cutter right answer. And you see, I didn't even do it the way I wanted to do it this year. The other question I get a lot has to do with these power lines. These are called transmission lines, right? So there's no power actually coming off of them to houses. They go from main port to main port. They're transmitting power to the substations, but they do come across our property. And I get questions all the time about this. And until I moved to this farm and had questions from you guys about these things, I really never even thought about it. And so I've done a lot of research myself. I kind of got a little fear mongering going on with questions about, am I at danger for being under this So here is what I have learned. So first off, the cattle have been on this farm for over 20 years. They have never affected, these power transmission lines have never affected the ground, the grass, or any cattle from anything that I can tell in my experience or the previous farmers that had this that I talked to them. Nobody else has ever told me that these transmission lines give them a problem. But as I've done my research, people are worried about the excess energy. So there is energy that comes off of these lines. Electricity gets lost as it travels through these lines, and it sheds, is a word that they use sometimes, and it comes down. And so there is a meter that you can buy. In fact, I had it in my Amazon cart because I got so worried as I was researching this. Is this going to affect my family's health? Do we need to stop farming here? Do I need to go somewhere else? It got me that worried as I started to think about it and as I did my research. And here's what I found. There are safe levels. The standard in America is much higher, which I think is due to politics. You know, think what you want to think there, than it is in Europe. So the same scenario is going on in Europe. And so I tend to look at, okay, who is more concerned about their health? And I went with the highest country's standards, meaning the lowest amount of shed could be safe. That being said, directly under these power lines, and I don't have the nanometer number for you, whatever it was, directly under these lines though, was right at that standard, sometimes above when I would walk around other countries. Now, it's never been above the American standard that I was given online, that I Googled and searched through what the American standard is of the off-putting. We're in a safe area according to their standards. As you get away, the further you get away from it, a couple 100 feet away from these lines, that goes down to be safe everywhere. Up at our barns, there's minimal readings. At our house, it's completely safe. And so what do I recommend? What are my thoughts today? And I'm going to tell you, this is strictly my opinion. I have enough concerns about my health, and I have enough concerns about my family's health, and I have enough belief that we can be deceived or lied to by either media or government. I'm conflicted enough that I do not trust everything I read or hear. So that's me personally. Choose what you want to choose. I would never build a house directly underneath transmission lines like this. If there was transmission lines in a community, I would not be buying a lot next to or underneath a transmission line. That's just me personally. Do I feel it is safe for row crops 100%? And hey, I don't see it affecting any of that whatsoever. What about our animals and our livestock? I don't see any afflictions with any of those being underneath these lines. And the key, I think, for us, or for me in my opinion, is the limited amount of times. If I was gonna build a feed barn where the cattle were in it all the time, directly underneath of it, I might have some concerns. I didn't even research that because I don't really have those concerns. They're away from the lines. They get far enough away. They only graze when they're underneath of it for a short period of time, a day at the most. And so as long as you're limiting your exposure, I think you're fine. That is my opinion. I think we are fine. But I would not want to live under them where every day I had exposure to this power. And so I've even walked away from it as I'm talking here a little bit. But there is some things that having this on my farm has caused some issues. Now, the first thing is there's a power company easement. Now, if there would be some work that need to be done on that, we have to allow them to come in and do that work. But it's in the middle of our pasture. So the biggest thing I see these energy companies needing to have access to these for is to clear trees, to keep the trees away from those towers. So we are baling it and bush hogging it and mowing around it so they won't have that problem on our property. Whereas my neighbor, if you can see down through that run, it's between the woods and goes through there. Those trees are starting to grow up. Eventually, the power company is going to want to come in and clear those trees again and clean that back up. So just know if you have these, you may have to let them on, depending on the situation. That was not in the contract when I bought this. I was not aware of that. But because we keep it mowed, it's safe for us. I don't think we'll ever see them unless something breaks on one of those towers. The second thing that I have found, it has to do with the shedding of energy and our electric fence. So while we were fixing fence around here and building fence, never saw any meter reading changes due to the shedding of energy. When I would shut the power off and put my meter back on, it would not read power until it rained. One day we were out here working on the fence. My gloves were wet. It had been misting. The grass was wet. My pants were wet, but we continued to work on. The fence was off. The charger was off. We were running a new hotline, and with my wet glove, I grabbed the wire directly underneath those wires. And when it's wet, when it rains, these things get really loud. You can really hear them cracking because of the disturbance up there with the electricity clicking on the water molecules. I got shocked. Now, it was not the same as if the fence was on shocking me. That hits hard. You don't want to be hit by our fence. But it was just enough to be like, did that thing really shock me? Did we turn a fence off? Yeah, we did. Held it again, nothing really happened, but all of a sudden there was a little tingle, like just enough to like question what happened. The electric fence will pick up the residual shedded electricity. I know it for a fact. It's not enough to change it a lot when it's on, but it is enough that you can tell when it's wet and when you're close to it, it will pick it up. I have had people tell me, oh, your charger will shock another 1,000 volts there because you're underneath that. It'll pick up all that electricity. I'm not finding that to be true, but I do know it does pick up a little bit. Now, what does that mean for you if you're in this situation? I don't think anything. I don't think you have to worry about anything. I don't think you have to change the way you run your electric fence or worry about your fencing. I don't think there's any problem with it. And I don't know that I'm concerned about my health because we stay consistently far enough away from them. But like I said, I definitely would be watching if I was building in a neighborhood. I wouldn't be building where I had consistent exposure underneath these lines. So we did say we baled, and we did put away the dry hay bales that we put in here, okay? And so we have this nice wrapper. We've been wrapping them. So why am I choosing to put away hay dry and wrap? What's the difference there and why? What's my logic? Well, first off, if you don't have a barn like this, wrapping is significantly cheaper than building a barn. I would always choose to dry wrap or wet wrap for that matter versus building a barn just to store hay. And I'm convinced that that is a dumb idea with our technology now and the price of the wrap and the wrappers, that how they've come down. So I've got like 4,800 bucks in this wrapper. You get about, for $100 for a roll of wrap, you get about 20 to 21 bales out of roll of that plastic that goes around if you're individually wrapping. Now these wrappers can be significantly higher than that. If they auto wrap as you're driving by, if they wrap in a tube, there's all kinds of things, and they go from $40,000 down to a cheaper Homesteader size like I have for $4,500. So if you have to choose between barn and putting dry hay away or wrapping and leaving it sit outside, wrapping is better. Some guys just leave their hay like this, sit outside. In that instance, I will tell you, a wrapper, the 20% of the bale that they are going to eat better, that you won't waste because of the plastic wraps that will save, that savings in hay will eventually, over a few years, will pay not only for the wrap that you're putting on, but will pay. This wrapper will pay for itself in the hay savings that you're going to get, even if you're wrapping dry hay. But in our instance, we have the barn. So the barn is here. I was actually going to build another barn to store my trailer, which the camera's sitting on, and some farm equipment and those things. But as I looked at this and researched this out, I decided the wrapper was the better route. But because this is 65 feet deep, I don't necessarily need all of this space for my 30-foot long cattle trailer, for this 28-foot flatbed trailer that I have, and the rest of the equipment. So I thought, well, I have this space, I have it extra, no need to bury all my equipment in the back and have extra space. I can get about 3 rows is 36 round bales, and you can see I've got 4 more extra up in this corner. So there's 40 bales in this barn, right now 41 actually. I can get that out this way, still get all my equipment in, and by doing that, I didn't have to pay for the wrap. The wrap costs somewhere between $4 and $5 a round bale. So essentially I saved 150 bucks, roundabout number, by putting this hay in the back of the barn and not wrapping it because it was dry. We chose to have dry hay this year, as well as wet wrapped and dry wrapped hay, all for a test, which is a video that will come out later. I want to see the difference in how they eat it, a difference in the quality of whether it's wet silage, whether it's dry wrapped hay. Do they like dry, open air stored, barn stored hay better than they do dry wrapped hay? I want to answer all these questions because I've read a lot of stuff, but I wanted to test it myself. And so that's why we're doing this and why we've chose to do different methods. It's all part of testing and cost savings. What is the most beneficial for us on a farm? You've got to pinch pennies. You got to save everywhere you can. And this is just one way we chose to save this year. Another way we've been saving, because this is our first year baling with our own baling equipment. We've either bought in hay or borrowed hay equipment to bale before, or we've shared equipment in ways where I've worked as labor and they let me use their equipment, done different things throughout the years, but now we own all of our own equipment. We've been around 15 years, 16 years doing this now. We finally got to a point where we can buy all of our own equipment. It's nothing great. I don't have a $40,000 baler, but it's allowed us to do our own. By doing our own, we're saving. Last year, I spent about $8,000 on hay. I'm hoping this year, one, because our cattle numbers are less, and two, we've produced our own hay. We're slowly gaining some more lease ground, which is cheaper. We can lease the ground and bale the hay off for cheaper than I can buy the hay that land would produce. So there is a cost savings there as well. So hopefully over time, we're able to pay for our baling equipment, and it looks like it's gonna be about a 6 to 7 year payback for us with the older equipment that we bought and the amount of hay that we use. So that's the first savings, is over time, when you can afford to pay cash, buy used equipment that you know how to work on, and make it pay for itself. It has to pay for itself in the numbers. And I would say if it's more than 8 years, you should not do it. If you have money and you say, well, we could buy hay equipment, but it takes 8 years to pay itself back, it's better for you to take that money, invest it in something else with a quicker payback, or simply invest it into a 401k or stock market. That money would pay you back quicker and just buy your hay. Then hay equipment would save you over time. I did learn something new this year because I now have all my own equipment and I'm buying all my own supplies. We buy string. We have a string tied, not net wrapped, but string tied baler because it's an older baler that doesn't have monitors. We wanted that. We wanted one hydraulic port. But because of that, we're buying string now. We're buying strings, we're buying the wraps, we're buying all this stuff. And so I had to figure out where is the best place to buy. Now we did TSC and Rural King, your typical big box stores. We've looked at local farm and fleet stores. And I'll tell you, all string is not created equally. That's the first thing I've definitely learned. And the second thing is prices change significantly throughout the year. So here's some hints, just some of the stuff that we've learned this year. This is our twine. So whether you're using square bales or you have a round baler that is string tied like ours is. First thing is everything that I've bought from my other guys, they use orange. And I decided to go with blue. Now the reason I went with blue is because I'm colorblind and the orange string on there is really hard for me to see. And I know that even though I work hard to cut it all off, some has ended up in my manure spreader because I couldn't see it. So that was the first thing we changed. We went with blue so that I can easily see it. The second thing is they use a smaller twine, a thinner gauge twine, if you will, that comes in a 20,000 foot roll. We went with the 9,000 foot rolls that has a little thicker, a little more girth on our string. One, because it's easier to get it off and see, but two, it's stronger. It doesn't allow the bales to deform. We also use a nylon string versus a twine. Now I have used 3 different strings this year to do another test as we do. I used the thinner orange that everybody else used. I used some twine, which will deteriorate. They say it can be fine in the cattle's gut. I do not like to do that, but if I did miss a piece, it is safer than getting nylon in their gut. So we did try it with some twine. We tried twine on open air dry hay as well as in our wrapped hay to see how the twine holds up as it ferments. Will it break? Will it cause our plastic to stretch? We did all of those tests as well. And then we went with this thicker line. Now, like most people, they don't keep stock of everything. You go out in the spring and you get ready for first cutting and you got 1 or 2 bales of twine left from last year. You go to the store and you pick it up. Since it was our first year, we didn't have any. I had a half a bale that came inside the baler, and I went and got my new string. The rolls of this in April were $85. When I went back this week, it was on sale for $35. The skids were much lower. Everybody had stocked up and bought, and now they're looking to get rid of it. So savings cost lesson is go ahead and stock up in the late summer or fall on all your string, on your net wrap, perhaps even. And I'm gonna go ahead and buy wrap because the wrap was $105 a roll in the spring. Now it's down to $85. So I'm gonna go ahead and buy everything I need for next year, put it up in a shelf. The important part is that you gotta keep it away from any kind of varmints. If you have a mice or rat or raccoon problem in a barn, you need to get that someplace where they can't chew through this and really make your life hectic for next year. You also don't want moisture, so you need to have it in a temperature, not really temperature controlled, but I hope you understand, some moisture control. You don't want mold building up on this or mildew. You don't want it in a wet, leaky barn, so it just needs to be somewhere that's dry, or even throw it in your basement or cellar or something if you want. But we're gonna do all that now in order to save us next year, looking ahead, pinching the pennies. While we were growing our pigs, they did fine, no issues in here, but we added this trash can full of feed right next to the feeder for him. If you didn't see that video, it'll be in there. But that was a great idea to help him, and it's kind of come so convenient for my kids. I don't know why I haven't done this all the time. So we are gonna continue using that. And we had a small round bale, like the last butt end, it was only like a foot. We did get that thrown in here as we were baling. The last thing we've done since we've been home is we finally got our dump trailer with all of our scrap metal emptied. Scrap metal was $100 a ton right now. It's really down compared to what I remember when I was trying to scrap a bunch of stuff. But we got 150 bucks from old fence, scrap metal that was around here that we used. So that's nice to add that to the farm. It's kind of a mess to take that over to the scrap yard, but we did get that cleaned up, making our place look a little better. The last thing on my list to do as we trying to get caught back up is bush hog. So I not only have to sharpen the blades on this bush hog, because I noticed that last time we cut, we get that in, get that maintenance really quick. And then I've got a waterway, some edges around the barn and things like that, just getting our farm cleaned up. And then I'm gonna go out and top the entire pasture, except for like the next week where the cattle will be. So everything that's more than a week ahead, I'm gonna top. Any weeds that are coming up due to this high heat, now is the time to go through and top, but I'm gonna mow about 12 inches tall. So I don't wanna cut off buds of clover, things like that if I can prevent it, unless they're brown, which is fine, it will reseed. But all that ragweed, any ironweed, any problems that we have, any weeds that are or any grass that is getting brown and dying off, I wanna chop that, let it fall, and then the cattle will trample that when it comes back in. So I don't wanna destroy my grass and mow it down tight unless I have too much and I wanna feed back. My goal is just to feed it with what's there to keep it low enough and help my weed pressure due to the heat that's coming on right now. Well, there you have it. That was a lot in this video. We've got a lot done in the week and a half to 2 weeks since we've been back from vacation. Sorry there hasn't been more educational videos, but that's what we've been doing. It's been running around trying to keep up with the weather and the hay and the heat and all those things. So I hope this video helped you. I did try to throw in some teaching points there and some lessons, and I hope those things were helpful to you on your farm, something that you can put in your back pocket or little mental notes on how to save money. One video that has been requested is about this automatic water. And so I took some negative comments online, which is fine. It will help me to make this. I will talk a lot about how to install that. It's not the winter. We don't have to worry about water freezing. Now is the time for you to install one of these before it gets cold, so that it has time to settle, so that the ground is ready when you need a frost-free automatic water. If you're thinking about buying one, now's the time to get it installed. So I'm gonna make that video. I'm gonna talk more in depth of how to install it, how they actually work. Some people are confused about how they work. They do not require electricity, is what I said in the last video, and some people disagree, so I'm gonna go through that. They do not require a heater core unit of any kind. So there's nothing running out there keeping it warm. So how does it prevent from freezing? I'm gonna go through all that in that video, so make sure you check that out. As always, thanks for watching. There are links down, some affiliate links of things that we use here on our farm every day. You could check those out. Make sure you check out Herd Yard if you didn't get to see that video. And I will have all the other videos that I mentioned down in the description. So our whole hay series, if you're looking how to do hay and some other things, I'll get those all down in that description. Until next time, thanks for watching.
Please like the video and subscribe.